picture this. You're out on a first date, right? And the ambiance is it's perfect.
Oh, yeah. Best table in the restaurant.
Exactly. The lighting is hitting just right. The food is amazing, and you're feeling a real connection. But then, out of absolutely nowhere, your date launches into this, highly graphic play-by-play story about a recent intestinal infection.
Oh, no. Just no. Even just hear you describe that, I can feel the chemistry just completely evaporating.
Right. Or, maybe it's a super detailed description of a recent knee surgery, complete with, the exact sounds the cartilage made.
Ugh, yeah. It instantly goes from this fun, romantic evening to basically a medical consultation in the blink of an eye.
The romance is just instantly gone. You're no longer a potential partner. You're suddenly, a reluctant medical resident on rounds. So, welcome to today's deep dive.
So glad to be here.
We are talking about the ultimate first date chemistry killer and, the hidden psychological tripwires we are constantly navigating when we meet someone new.
It's a minefield out there.
It really is. And to understand exactly why our brains and our bodies reject gross medical talk so violently early on, we're pulling from a really insightful piece from the Weddizer website.
Oh, they have great stuff.
They really do. Specifically, we're looking at their section for relationship and social etiquette purposes. If you're trying to figure out how to deal with modern romance, you can find how to deal with relationships guidance through the article section on their website, especially related to this specific niche.
Yeah, that niche social dynamic stuff is fascinating.
So our mission today is to really unpack the biological mechanics of first impressions, like what's actually happening in our brains. And we'll explore the difference between true vulnerability and just, oversharing.
Right, which is a huge distinction. And also how to gracefully steer conversations out of that awkward zone if you find yourself in one.
Exactly.
And this is incredibly relevant for you, the listener, whether you're, actively swiping on the apps, prepping to get back out there, or honestly just fascinated by the unspoken rules of human social dynamics.
For sure. Because understanding conversational boundaries, it isn't just about dating, right?
No, not at all. It's the fundamental architecture of building any kind of meaningful connection.
So let's start with that immediate reaction. I mean, we all know we shouldn't talk about bodily fluids over appetizers.
You think most adults know that anyway.
You would hope. But what really fascinates me is the sheer speed and, the intensity of the rejection when it does happen.
Oh, it's instant.
Yeah, the Weddizer article points out that first impressions form within the very first few minutes. But why does a story about, say, a gallbladder surgery trigger such a violently negative response?
Because it's not just boredom, right? It's actual physical repulsion.
Right. To understand that, we actually have to look past simple social etiquette and dive into evolutionary psychology.
Okay, evolution. Let's get into it.
Yeah, specifically this thing called the behavioral immune system. So humans evolved to survive in environments where disease was a constant threat.
Right. No antibiotics back in the day. Exactly. So we developed this psychological mechanism that triggers an immediate, profound sense of disgust at the very first sign of pathogens, illness, or bodily dysfunction.
Wow.
Disgust isn't just like a secondary emotion. It's a primal survival instinct.
So when your date starts talking about an infection, your brain isn't just thinking, oh, this is inappropriate small talk.
No.
Your brain is literally flashing a neon biological warning sign that says, contagion risk, evacuate.
That is the exact mechanism. When you trigger the behavioral immune system in someone, you are creating an instant negative physical association. You actually shift their nervous system state.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, sexual chemistry, flirtation, social bonding, all of that requires the parasympathetic nervous system to be active. That's our rest, relax, and arouse state.
Okay.
But disgust triggers the sympathetic nervous system. That is your fight, flight, or repel state. And biologically speaking, those two systems cannot drive the car at the same time.
Oh, that makes total sense. I was thinking about it okay, it's like trying to light a romantic candle while someone is actively spraying a fire extinguisher at it.
Yes. That is a perfect analogy.
You literally cannot build physical and emotional chemistry, which, relies on lightheartedness and laughs, when you're suffocating the spark with jarring biohazard details.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your body is subconsciously preparing to flee.
Yeah.
And, it goes beyond just the physical disgust, too.
Right, because the Weddizer piece talks a lot about subconscious evaluation.
Yes, the background check.
Yeah, this idea that we are constantly running a background check on the person sitting across from us.
Right. Think of an early date like a software handshake. between two servers.
Okay, I like that.
Before any real data can be exchanged, the two systems are just ping each other to establish basic compatibility and security protocols like, are you safe? Are you healthy? Do you understand the basic rules of this network?
Right.
So that background app in our brain is constantly evaluating a potential partner's hygiene, their health awareness, and their social sensibility.
Social sensibility, meaning like your ability to read a room and regulate your own behavior based on the context.
Precisely. So dumping a graphic medical history on a stranger isn't just gross.
No.
It signals a massive failure in executive function.
Ouch.
Yeah. It tells the other person that you lack the social sensibility to understand context. It's the equivalent of trying to send a massive corrupted zip file before that secure software handshake is even completed.
And the system just crashes.
The system crashes.
Okay, I love the software handshake analogy, but I do want to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
Let's look at the culture of modern dating right now. People are exhausted by superficial small talk.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone hates the what do you do for work questions.
Right. And we have a whole culture right now that champions trauma bonding, radical transparency, bringing your quote-unquote whole authentic self to the table immediately.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge trend.
So let's say overcoming a major surgery or like managing a chronic illness is a massive part of my life. It really shaped my character. If I withhold that on a first date, aren't I just lying by omission? Like, isn't that being inauthentic?
See, that is the exact trap so many intelligent, well-meaning people fall into.
Really?
Yes. We confuse the concept of authenticity with a complete and total lack of boundaries.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Weddizer article actually makes a brilliant distinction here that we really need to highlight. There's a profound difference between clinical intimacy and emotional intimacy.
Clinical versus emotional. Okay, break that down for me.
Okay.
How do you define the difference in a dating context?
So, oversharing the graphic details of a surgery or a traumatic medical event that's an attempt to fast-track intimacy. You're basically forcing the other person into a pseudo-caregiver or clinical role before they even decided if they like your personality.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's a false shortcut. Emotional intimacy, true authenticity, is earned over time. You don't prove you're authentic by emptying your entire emotional and medical purse onto the table before the drinks even arrive.
That's such a good point. So it's not about hiding who you are. It's about like curating the trailer before you ask someone to sit through the 3-hour director's cut of your life.
Yes, that is a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Early dates are strictly for mutual bonding and establishing a baseline of emotional safety. You have to earn the right to someone's vulnerability, and they have to earn the right to yours.
Right.
Saving the heavy, traumatic, or graphic details for later is not dishonest. It's actually a sign of high emotional intelligence.
Because it respects your own boundaries too, like protecting your vulnerabilities from a literal stranger.
Exactly. And it respects their cognitive load.
Which brings up an interesting pivot. If we need to establish that we are healthy, capable individuals for that subconscious background check, but we can't use our actual medical history to do it,
Right.
how do we signal hell if all crossing into that clinical territory?
So the strategy outlined by relationship experts is to focus entirely on the proactive, positive side of the spectrum. You keep health discussions general, lifestyle-oriented, and strictly non-graphic.
So talking about like your fitness routines.
Yes, fitness routines, how you manage stress, or your general wellness habits.
Okay, so the difference between saying, I'm really into morning hikes right now, it totally clears my head, versus saying, I had to start hiking because my doctor said my resting heart rate was at stroke levels.
Exactly. Notice the difference in how those two statements make you feel.
The first one is great.
Right. It signals vitality, an active lifestyle, and mental health management. It's highly attractive. But the second one, that immediately shifts the tone to clinical diagnostics and, frankly, mortality.
Yeah, that's heavy for a Tuesday night over tacos.
Exactly. It forces the listener to worry about your cardiovascular system rather than wonder if you're a good kisser.
It kills the flirtation instantly. So the play is to keep the health talk brief and positive, and then use that as a launch pad to pivot towards shared interests.
Yes, the classic safe zones. Travel, books, food, culture.
But again, it's not just reciting a resume of your hobbies.
No. The mechanics of a good pivot rely heavily on humor and storytelling. You want to share amusing anecdotes from your daily life, maybe a funny childhood memory, or like a recent adventure that went slightly wrong.
Humor really is the ultimate bridge.
It is.
Yeah.
It actively engages that parasympathetic nervous system we talked about earlier. It lightens the mood and chemically fosters a positive atmosphere.
Okay, but let's look at the other side of the table for a second, because a conversation takes two people.
Right.
What happens when you are fully aware of all these rules, but your date is the one who starts veering into uncomfortable medical territory?
It happens all the time.
It does. Smart, capable adults accidentally commit this faux pas constantly. Why do they do it? Is it just nerves?
In many cases, yes, it is pure cognitive overload. When people get nervous on a first date, their prefrontal cortex is working overtime trying to manage the impression they're making. And because their brain is so overloaded, they lose the ability to filter. So they just default to whatever is currently taking up the most space in their mind.
Ah, I see.
If they just had a dental procedure or they're dealing with a lingering sports injury, it's top of mind. So it just spills out.
It's word vomit induced by anxiety.
Precisely.
So if we recognize that our date isn't necessarily a walking red flag, but maybe just a nervous person who is currently failing their own software handshake, how do we tactically handle that? Like, how do we intercept the corrupted file without being insulting?
This is where tactical conversational etiquette comes in. The first step is observational. You have to read the room and recognize the physical cues of discomfort either in yourself or your date before the conversation goes completely off the rails.
Okay, what are the biological tells that the conversation has entered the danger zone?
Fidgeting is a major indicator of a spiked sympathetic nervous system.
Like playing with the napkin or tapping their foot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, a sudden, sustained lack of eye contact. Or, and this is the most common one in polite society, the strained, forced smile accompanied by short, non-committal answers.
Oh, like, oh, wow, or, interesting.
Those are immediate glaring indicators that the topic needs to change.
I call those the hostage situation responses.
That's exactly what they are.
You're just nodding along, desperately hoping the story about the drain fluid ends soon. Okay, so if we spot these signs or if our date is the one oversharing, we have to intervene. But we can't just act like a conversational traffic cop holding up a giant stop sign, right? That's too aggressive.
Ooh, too aggressive.
We need something smoother, like using humor as your whistle to safely reroute the cars down a scenic bypass instead.
I love that. Yes, you need an anchoring pivot. If the conversation drifts into awkward or gross territory, you use a playful comment or a self-deprecating joke to absorb the awkwardness, and then you immediately throw an anchor into a completely different, safer topic.
Give me a real-world example of this verbal judo. How do I playfully deflect a story about a gruesome physical injury without making them feel stupid for bringing it up?
You take the burden of discomfort off of them and put it entirely on yourself.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, so if they start detailing a surgery, you might laugh, hold up your hands in surrender, and say something like, "Oh my gosh, I have to stop you there. I have the world's weakest stomach for medical stuff. I will literally faint face first into this risotto."
That is good.
But speaking of surviving intense situations, you mentioned earlier you went backpacking in the Andes.
Wow, that is incredibly smooth because you set a firm boundary, I cannot hear this, but you frame it as your own frailty, not their social failure.
Exactly.
And then you immediately offer a lifeline. You don't just leave dead air, you give them an exciting, positive topic to jump onto.
It's a graceful rescue. But to pull that off, you need the final tactical element, which is preparation.
You can't just wing it.
You really can't scramble for that lifeline in the moment when your own nervous system is reacting to a gross story. You need to prevent defaulting to awkward silence by having a few light, engaging conversation starters preloaded in your mind.
Sort of like having a few emergency flare guns in your back pocket.
Exactly. Have a few open-ended questions ready. Ask about their most irrational fear, the dream vacation if money were no object, or, the best piece of media they've consumed this year.
Nice.
Open-ended questions force the brain out of its anxious loop and invite creativity, which keeps the dialogue dynamic.
And once you deploy that question, you have to actually participate in the answer, right? Active listening. If you ask about their trip to the Andes, you can't just sit back and mentally check out where they talk.
Absolutely not, because active listening is what actually builds the emotional safety we've been talking about. When you respond thoughtfully to their safe interests, you anchor the conversation in a positive place. It demonstrates empathy and shows that you genuinely value their perspective.
So, if we step back and look at the big picture here, we manage the biological triggers of the immune system. We differentiate between clinical and emotional intimacy. We deploy humor to pivot away from anxiety-induced oversharing.
Right.